All right, guys, we're back. It's been 8 long years since the first Accountant film. I'm not too sure why it took so long to make another one, but Ben Affleck and John Bernthal have joined up again. And this film was a good action flick. I liked it. It had an interesting pacing. There were more comedic elements than I would have expected. It was quite an emotional film at times as well. And when I say comedy, by the way, I don't mean like cringy, quirky Marvel type humor
So, this all seems horrible.
where every serious moment has to have a little joke on the end of it to like plateau the seriousness.
They fly now! They fly now!
No, this film's comedy was quite realistic and quite wholesome and just relatable, I think. Didn't dampen the film on any level, really. It just added to it because I think the film really hones in on how, I guess, autistic Christian is, who is played by Ben Affleck. So, Christian, I'm not sure how you would exactly describe his level of autism, but it's not so prevalent that he can't do physical things and he's very sharp. He's like just about well adjusted to do what he does. But if he's trying to get extra things out of life, he is struggling a lot. Like he struggles with dating, and you see that in the film, and that's a very sort of comedic part, is him trying to like put himself out there. So, anyways, I will say the plot can be a bit convoluted, because for the first sort of parts of the film, everyone's kind of looking for each other and it's just a bit sort of weird. You don't really know what's going on. The kind of intro scene is this very mysterious kind of assassin woman who is going to talk to J.K. Simmons. They both get sort of ambushed by bad guys, and J.K. Simmons gets killed, and he has this, you know, the woman he was talking to, mysterious assassin woman, she was looking for someone, and he has written on his arm, "Find the accountant." And I don't think she even sees that because they have to make a break for it and run separate directions. But a federal officer who's like an investigator, played by Cynthia Adi Robinson, who's in the Shooter and Rings of Power and things like that. She finds that message on his arm, and she's looking for the accountant as well in the end. And the accountant's doing his own thing, and then Brax is sort of like out there just being Brax, really. But it does all come together, and it does start to make sense. I will say the scenes with Brax and Christian are kind of the highlights of the film, really. Especially when you get all three of them. You get this like trifecta of the federal officer who kind of needs to use the accountant's help on this case, even though he has sort of underhanded ways. And then when Brax, because Christian sort of brings along Brax into the equation, and it's like, oh my God, you haven't spoken to your brother in ages, and suddenly when you need help, you're going to call on him. So Brax is kind of pissed, and he's like, well, why I've been reaching out to you, like, why haven't you been responding to me? And and he does open up gradually, which is again interesting because Brax is this kind of tough, Jason Statham-esque character, and he's actually opening up to his brother. So what else? I did really like the scene similar to when the accountant fixes that company's numbers in the first film. They have a scene similar to that. So the federal investigator has all these pictures on this wall, and she's trying to put all these dots together that we, the audience, are pretty confused about as well. And the accountant has this great scene where he like, Christian comes in and he's like, "Oh, I'll just wait for you to leave the room and then I'll do my thing." And then, a bit later he shows her and he walks her through his logic and his deduction and what he's inferred from this. And it's a very cool scene because the writers really did actually put effort into making that seem logical and quite smart. So definitely has some good moments in the film. The pacing is quite gradual. It's not like a really action-packed action flick. It's got bits of, action and violence here and there, but there are also lots of just interesting dynamics with them talking to each other and trying to figure out, who these bad guys are and how they operate and stuff. It builds up to a scene at the end of the film where the brothers really come together and they really fight against the odds and just like the first film, and it does end on a bang, so keep that in mind. But yeah, so the acting, um no major issues with the acting, to be honest. I think Ben Affleck did pretty well playing someone who is quite significantly autistic. um I do have some comments about the level of accuracy with the autism because I see people debating this quite often. So I actually thought the dating kind of scenes, there's a scene where he does speed dating, and I do think that's quite a realistic scene, even though it doesn't might not feel like it. He actually gets a lot of attention from women, and they line up at his desk, and they keep trying to talk to him, and it's just going downhill every time because he's very logical, and it's there's nothing that dampens the mood other than someone being super logical with every sentence. Because he lives in his caravan with all of his weapons and stuff, and there's one woman who's like, "Oh, so you live there permanently, right? You're gonna live there forever?" And he's like, "Well, yes, as long as I'm alive. My body's eventually going to be a husk."
Oh, permanently. Well, as long as I'm alive, eventually this body will be a corpse.
Like he's just being super weird, and I thought that was realistic. The brotherly love kind of stuff is like, because Brax really does care for Christian, and he is, he's a neurotypical kind of person, so you can see where Brax is coming from. But you can also see that Christian does care about his brother. He is very distant, and he won't reach out to Brax unless he feels that there is a logical reason to do so. And it's not because he doesn't care, like necessarily, it's not in a nasty way. He just does lack a bit of empathy. And I thought that they showed it well how, autistic people can lack cognitive empathy, but they can have, things like affective empathy and sorry, effective empathy and things like that. So I thought it showed that quite well. I think the writing, leading on from that stuff, I think the writing was fine, had no complaints. The cinematography was pretty good, wasn't like a super artistic, gorgeous film, but it had some nice visuals and was obviously had some care go into it, so it was pretty good. So yeah, I would say overall it was a good action film. Is it worth seeing? Yes. Is it better than the first film? No, I would say the first film edges it because I just thought it was more well structured as a film. It wasn't as confusing. You kind of knew what you were getting and it did it quite well. Yeah, I did enjoy the dynamic he had with Anna Kendrick because I think that also showed his autism quite well and in a more subtle way. So, yeah, that's kind of my overall verdict for this film. Nothing too crazy, just, good old bit of fun, quite wholesome, good action film, a little bit emotional, a little bit comedic. So, if that sounds like your bag, definitely give it a shot. And yeah, thanks for watching.